So it's competition time again. This time we had over 50 submissions. Well done to all those who took part in our Christmas competition. We had some fantastic entries, so let's take a look. So the first on the list is Matthias, formerly known as 2DKs15. You can tell it's him by the funny weird legs that are around the place. I really like the presents, although they should be wrapped ideally. Perhaps this is the aftermath of Christmas and they're all nicely laid out. This is some great work, a nice camera angle. I like the depth of field. It's good to have things in the foreground to create depth. Perhaps a tiny bit more work on the lighting so it's not as evenly spread across the room. And maybe something in the middle of the kitchen to break things up, like an island or something, and less of the crazy wall art in the background. Nice work, getting better each time, well done. This one's from Mafa. I'm a big fan of this piece, I think it's really lovely. Lots of nice details, which really makes a difference when you've got a big scene like this. Be careful of large areas where you haven't thought about the details. So everywhere there's sort of wall coverings, on the floor too, and it's changed really nicely after they asked for feedback, and they've really moved the piece on excellently. I think this table base is a bit thick, and perhaps the curve in your wood burner is a little bit unusual. I think there's a much better choice of chairs than you had last time. These little details are very good. It makes things seem less digital. Very nice work, Mafa. Here's one from Cara Wolf's wife, apparently, who wanted to join in the competition as well. I like this. It might look a bit blurry. It's very low resolution image, sort of pixel art, and it would have taken me a little time to blow it up without making it blur, so sorry about that. I like the style. I like the Blender logo, of course. And I think it's a really fun piece. Thanks very much for joining in the competition. This one's from Demeter Zephyr Animations. This is a very interesting style. It's an interesting render with quite unusual reflections. I like the idea and I really like the colour theme. I think these areas look a bit unusual. They look like they don't really link in, and at the bottom here the transparency of the glass seems a bit out. But a nice interesting piece, well done. Here's one from Al Nak. Really nice work. I really like the Christmas tree on this one. I like the vibrancy of the colours. There's loads of really nice details in this scene, but it still seems a little stark, like big areas like this and on the wall. What might have helped is to have the picture on the chimney breast and bring all this over to the side and squash it all in and frame it much closer. That might have helped these huge stark areas where there's nothing going on. Excellent work on lots of the models though, really nice. And I like the fire texture and the wood. Here's one from Manus, and he mentions the noise and the problems with rendering. I think it just took a long time. It's a very nice scene, I like it. I like the construction, and there's a good atmosphere. It'd be nice to see some background, maybe some stars in the sky. The snow is a bit unusual in places, it goes a bit blocky, and just be careful of overlapping meshes and things like that. And perhaps a tiny bit of work on the textures here. I think one more light might have been nice as well, perhaps in the foreground here, but I can understand that you're trying to focus on the Santa's hat, which does work well. Nice work. Here's one from S30V. Very nice scene, I like the trees, and there's lots of detail gone into this again. Good use of lighting. You can sort of see the more yellowy lights focusing on the house and the bluey lights into the distance to try and highlight the house, or the log cabin. The snow on the roof looks a bit uniform, and I think the logs also look a bit uniform and very sharp. I know it's sort of a low poly feel, but then there's quite a lot of detail to it as well, like the bows and the Christmas wreath and rocking chair. So choosing one or the other might be a good idea. Lovely work though. Here's one from Wizard. Lovely piece again. Excellent lighting. I like the barn textures, that's really nice, these wood panels. Love the log pile. The lighting looks really good as well, doesn't it? It's low angle, so it stretches the shadows. The one area I think that it needs work on is the trees. They look very uniform, and it looks like it's the same tree rotated several times. I think it's probably just the sapling plugin that you're using, which just creates very uniform kind of trees really, even though it's got all the settings. I think maybe a bit more variation in the heights perhaps, but trees are always a sticking point when it comes to 3D. Christmas tree looks great. Very nice work. This one's from Joel to Don, and they say they're new to Blender. Well, I think it's a very nice piece. I like the construction. And that's the thing, if you're not great at modelling, think very carefully about the way you put your scene together in terms of the construction and lighting and the look and feel of it. rather than technical ability. I think you probably could have gone in a bit closer to the robin and made your holly a bit bigger, but I like the colours in here as well. Very nice. Here's one from Dasher Solo. I really like this, it looks fantastic. It's so detailed and interesting and intriguing to look at all the objects in the background. I love the colour theme, the sort of muted tones and pastel-y tones of the presents. And the tree looks really great. I'm kind of confused though as to why there's so much stuff in the background, and it looks like we're in a loft somewhere where lots of stuff's been piled up. But having a Christmas tree with presents in a loft seems a bit strange. I really like the piece though, but I don't think I understand the story aspect. Really clever use of colour as well. The more saturated colours coming out to the front and the less saturated to the background. They obviously have a very good understanding of construction and design. Excellent work. Here's one from Green Lucid. A really nice piece again. They took a lot of advice from the community and the piece has moved on really well. You put lots of work into these posters, but we hardly see them in the end, which is a shame because they're all really good fun. Having the lamppost so close to the camera means you need to put a lot of detail into it, so perhaps a very slight bump map on this or some details coming in here would have been quite good. And its connection to the ground looks a little bit unusual. It's a very nice piece. I love this shop window, and I possibly would have liked you to focus on something like that more than the whole scene. It seems strange, but the details you put into here you kind of need everywhere else as well for it to make sense. So if you've got an area like this, it's best to really focus on that. In fact, just in here with the lamp there, the bottle shop, and just cut it off here, and maybe some of the posters you've done in the background there. It's really excellent work though, really like it. Here's one from Random Discorder 33, trying their hand at 2D art now. Good construction with the rule of thirds on the mountaintops. It's difficult to know what's going on at the bottom here though, so perhaps a bit more structure and shape down the bottom. Well done though. It's good to see people doing both the 3D and the 2D, developing both those skills. They really go hand in hand and you'll become a better artist for it, so well done. Here's one from Aaron Den Oden. I think I'm saying that right. Their username is actually Klomfagdu. This is a good fun piece. Good use of shading in the Santa costume. I like these shaded areas here and the light areas. That helps the body to look full. It would have been nice if you continued that in the other areas as well. I like the shape, structure and look of the face, it looks great. This one's from Jost. They've put a lot of work into this and it's turned out really well. It's an interesting idea on the bark to have these sort of areas that come out like this. That's unusual to see, but it does seem to work. It's got a really chunky, blocky feel, and I think when you're going for low poly it's important to do that. Think, am I going really chunky or am I going into the minor details? If you're going for a really chunky feel, it can be quite hard putting the details into these areas, but that's quite nice. And the axe down here looks great. And it's the right amount of grass around the place, I think. I think the detail's lost in the house in the distance. It doesn't quite work for me for some reason. Maybe it's the colour combination. It's a lot more pastel-y than this area here, which makes sense because it's in the distance. It might just be the angle and maybe the camera needs to come around just a touch so we can see a bit more. But that could just be a personal preference. I think a bit of variation in the width of your logs as they go down, maybe come out a bit at one end and in a bit at another, or maybe in a bit at the middle or something like that. Really nice work, well done. Here's one from Reza Bajat. Well done for getting your work into the Discord server. They sent it through email at first, but I asked if they could put it through the Discord. It's much easier for me to collate them all. This is a really nice piece, great textures, great composition, and I love the depth of field. It's very hard to get these Christmas trees to work, but it really does work in this case. The only thing I would say is the lights are really tiny. Assuming that this is a Father Christmas sort of figurine that's quite small, then the lights would be absolutely minute. I think that's a really minor point though, because it's a really lovely piece. Excellent work, thanks for that. This is Bad Bite's submission. Great composition in terms of the lighting, and some nice detailed work on the models. I think you could have possibly come in to here and maybe brought this present up and the floor up and come closer into about this area, because this is very sort of stark and it's very bright as well, so our eyes are kind of drawn to this area where there's nothing in, where they should be drawn to this area. And perhaps a couple of presents. There's some sort of rule of 3 or something like that in interior design, I think. So having 3 objects is supposed to be quite a good thing. Nice work. This is from GHP Zin. This is a really interesting one, and we're obviously in the future. It's got an interesting story. This person is obviously depressed, even though he's got a very bright jumper on. But with the drink, the gun, and looking back on the family perhaps with the rings. And then this sort of futuristic pretense of Christmas is very interesting. Very nice indeed. I think next, work on your hard surface modelling. These look a bit too organic. The gun is quite a rigid technical object, so it deserves a hard surface model really. And if you are sculpting something like a tree, then try and sharpen the edges up where needed. Nice, interesting idea though. Well done. This one's from Resden. There's some nice details here. These mice are brilliant, and the cat in the distance here. The models are really, really nice. I absolutely love this chair. I think what's letting it down a bit is the lighting. This shadow here is really nice, and it looks quite interesting, but we need some sort of light on this area to make it stand out. So if there was some Christmas lights that were shining in this area more, and then there was very little light in the background, maybe just a bit from this candle, it might help. Obviously the more lights you have, the longer the render times, the more noise you get though. Love the cat model, that's great. It's a really lovely piece. Fantastic work. Here's one from Yazid. This is a really interesting one. I love the work with the sculpts, and it's really hard to get this sort of detail. That's fantastic. The background's very interesting as well. This sort of smoky background, quite clever. The presents look really nice, and the lighting is lovely. A bit of a higher sample rate would have been nice, because it's a really great piece. The only thing I would say, it's difficult to work out what's going on immediately in your head, because it looks for a moment like the person is pulling the sled, but actually they must be sitting down, and perhaps the reindeer are pulling the sled along these leads. But I feel like the angle isn't helping, and we kind of need a bit more down the bottom here. Also, there's a tiny bit of an issue with the anatomy. The bicep or shoulder is really long, and the bicep should be about here, and there's a big dent in it. But those are minor points, and it's a really lovely piece. Well done. Here's one from Cyberman. Love the idea, very clever. They've labelled it Good Luck Santa. A little bit harsh, whoever set these traps. Perhaps that's why Santa hasn't left them any presents. I really like the idea. Santa looks really good, although he is still in a sort of T-pose, which looks a bit strange. But it's just about working. These traps look really vicious, and the cookies and milk look quite appealing. I think a tiny bit more work on the lighting. It all seems quite flat at the moment, that's the only thing. So everything seems to be lit the same. So maybe having a lamp here so it highlights the milk and cookies, and then perhaps a main light highlighting Santa. Excellent work. Here's Zealot 1703's work. This is a very interesting idea with the crazy snowman with a candy bazooka. Some really vibrant colours going on here as well. Good fun piece. It's a touch flat, so maybe thinking about the lighting and trying to highlight different areas. And just watch out for this sort of thing. Make sure you spend the time putting objects on top of each other and making them touch. Excellent job. Here's one from Wonder Ninja. This is a nice effective tree model, well done. And the lighting is excellent. There's a real atmosphere to it. I think the area for improvement is just in the PBR textures. This is very, very nice. I really like this. And it's got just the right amount of reflection with all the lights. These are a tiny bit small for bricks. That would have taken the bricklayer a long time to build that house. And the wood textures on the window, they're very uniform. But they're minor points in a great piece. Here's one from Flipendo. I'm assuming this is Philip Plokinic. Yes, it is. I'm just reading that. He's got a really unique style that I absolutely love. The work on the colours is exceptional. The construction looks really good. And the design and idea of this weird sort of Santa gnome thing is just brilliant. I do love this sort of work. It's got a great feel to it. It's very minimalist. It's got a very sort of symmetrical feel as well. I don't know, but I might have liked a big pile of presents in the background, but maybe I'm just a bit greedy when it comes to presents. Excellent work. Here's one from Kaz. Please try to remember the 1920 by 1080 rule that we have, which is the pixel resolution and aspect ratio. It's a very nice piece. I love the glare on the lights. Would have been nice to have a few more presents again. I know I'm a bit greedy, but that's what I want. Some very nice details there. Well done. This is one from Ababarins. This is quite an interesting piece. I think I remember them saying something about Cinema 4D. It's a really cool scene actually. I like the details in the tree here, that's a clever way of doing it, and it's a lovely angle. The chain link fence looks really great as well, although it's a tiny bit uniform at the top, but it's really clever. I feel a bit like this scene was created and then Merry Christmas was kind of slapped on at the end to say, yes, it's definitely a Christmas theme, but it's still a really nice piece. Here's one from Taj the Guy. This is quite an interesting idea with some northern light thing going on here. I like your reindeer models, they're really great. The construction of it's really, really good as well. Looking up like this and then Santa flying across the moon. Or the moonlit sky anyway, not across the moon as such. Excellent stuff. There's a bit of an issue here. I think your background plate, as we might call it, is taking some of the shadows, and that really doesn't make sense, so push the plate further away so it doesn't get hit by the shadows. And the other thing is, if you've got these sort of lights, they can distract from the main image. It's just about working, but we're sort of losing details here in the details that are in the background. So perhaps a bit more blur, but then I suppose Santa won't be as vivid. So that's a tricky one to work out and manage. Very nice piece though, well done. This is Sly 9's work. They said they had something else in mind but couldn't quite finish it. I quite like the piece actually, it's quite interesting, unusual idea. It's sort of like a Christmas television bauble. I like the blending of these colours, it looks really interesting. I really like the textures and the use of lighting and the glows in different places. And good use of the green in here with the reds. Here's one from Fluffy Mushroom. This is a really good fun one as well. I really like the textures, they've got a real softness and a very sort of marshmallowy feel, which really works nicely. The only bits I don't like are these bits on the floor. I'm not sure what's going on with them, or what they are in fact, because they're embedded into the floor, so it doesn't quite work for me. Love this image though, really fun, really interesting, great idea, well done. Here's one from Johnny O'Sullivan. Excellent work, really well done. They've thought about the, what is it, the Hibbert spiral I think it's called, trying to focus on the turkey here, and a great little story going on. It's a tricky one this, because the depth of field is certainly helping us to focus on this area, and it's nice and vivid so we don't focus on the background until a bit later. But if you're thinking about the Hibbert spiral, it comes around here into this point here, but there isn't a lot of detail in this bit. In fact, the detail is in the cat's face, and that's what we should have probably focused upon. So in a sense we want it coming around here into the cat's face, which it kind of does, but the cat's face is a tiny bit high for that to work. It needs to be about here. These are really minor points because it's a great piece. And there's masses of work going into all these details. I think a tiny bit of work on the textures. They seem very sort of plasticky, which I know is very difficult with this sort of low poly style as it kind of is, or stylized style anyway. But these sort of textures are really nice, but these textures seem a bit flat. Cats are very difficult because they're furry, and doing fur is very tough. But perhaps a bit of shine on the turkey, so it looks a bit more tasty. Again, these are minor points because it's a really great piece, and I think you've done exceptionally well. Here's one from Dead Bob Media, and they say they didn't like the thumb. Hands are always really tough, but you've done a great job. Love these presents, the depth of field looks good. The scene construction looks really nice as well. I think you've done a great job. After only a few months of using Blender or something. Be careful with your textures, don't stretch them. I think the Blender logo is a bit stretched there. It's a big no-no in the design world. And that is our main focus, so it has to be perfect. Nice work though, well done. Here's one from Manahu. This is pretty nice, I like this. It's got a real atmosphere to it. Great focus on Santa up here, and we've got these weird sort of igloo things going on. I like the lighting that's sort of bursting through like this, and the moon bursting through the clouds as well. But also the lights here that bring our focus to this area. This does have a sort of spiral going on here into this focal area up the top, which makes it look really good. Great work. Here's a submission from Edward. This is great construction, great in terms of the rule of thirds, the classic Christmas scene, 3 wise men and the following the star to Bethlehem over here. It's quite clever putting the moon low in the sky like this, so we end up focusing on the camels. It's quite interesting that the shadows are coming across. They look like they've been added in afterwards a little bit, and with the moon that low we would certainly have very long shadows coming across here, which might have been quite nice. This glare is really nice, and it's a great scene. Here's one from Praveen. Nice simplistic scene, but it's working. A little bit of a lower angle might have been good perhaps. I like the simplicity of the shapes and of the colours as well. Perhaps a bit of work on the star might have helped, especially in the edges. Nice work. Here's one from Croc. Pretty crazy scene happening here. Very interesting idea. Lots of detail, lots of effort going in. I really like it. I think the snow actually adds quite a lot of atmosphere, and that's quite clever. Some hand-painted textures I see in different places. And there's some really good movement in Santa. Watch out a little bit for overlapping bits like this, and perhaps just try and concentrate on those minor details, because it's a really great piece, such as in the arm here. Those minor details can make a big difference. But really nice work, well done. Here's one from Fjord. Really like the Christmas tree, that is fantastic. It's got a really sort of fluffy feel to it, just like a Christmas tree should have. Presents look really nice. I like these decorations up here as well, they're really nice. The lighting seems really nice, but it's not quite there, there's something about it. I think there's too much sort of fill light in it, and maybe I'd like to see more coming from the Christmas tree and the candles in some way. I can't quite put my finger on it, and maybe it's just me. Watch out as well for these really hard edges. Put a bevel on your objects will help. And perhaps a tiny bit more bump on the wood in the background. I really love that Christmas tree though. Absolutely amazing. Here's one from Sword of Doom. I like this one, it makes me laugh. This snowman's really hilarious with the balloon. And I love the shape of the trees. I think I would have preferred it without the background though, and just have more of these sort of white mountains going up there and just model those. And be careful where you put your sun, because the light's coming from this direction and your sun's over here. If you'd taken the sun out and the background out, or hid the background, I think it might have been a better piece. Really nice work though, I like it. Here's one from AlexFX. This is the 2D submission. Very nice work, very detailed. I think the eyes are a touch big, but they are very well drawn. It's good composition as well. And this is their 3D submission. This is nice work. It's unfinished, but it's an excellent start. I think possibly a slightly overdramatic hip to waist ratio here. I know I said I love curves last week, but I think that's a bit too extreme. Really excellent work. You can see that the 2D art is influencing your 3D art as well, and that's what I mean about that sort of marriage of your art skills, which could be really beneficial to a 3D artist. Well done. Here's one from Landry. Nice idea this with the snow globe. Love the snowman with the weird expression, and I like the top hat. I like this tiny detail with the bauble as well. I think a bit of work on the background might have been nice, or perhaps just leave it blank, which is difficult though when you've got a see-through glass cage like this. And also, if we're this close in, it doesn't really need to be sort of a low poly feel. We can smooth that up maybe with a subdivision surface, then it won't be so blocky. Nice work though. This is from Devilishly Dutch. A nice simple composition here, but it works really nicely. And it's their 4th day of using Blender. You're moving on very quickly, well done. Here's one from Norika, Christmas cupcake. It does look pretty delicious, doesn't it? I like the lighting, it's got a really soft feel to it, and it makes the cupcake really stand out. These ribbons are lovely. Really excellent piece. I think the pine cones don't quite work though. Sometimes it's best just to leave those sort of things out if they're not quite fitting in, because it doesn't quite look like a pine cone really. Perhaps have different sized baubles. The only other minor thing is the kind of spacing around the object. Maybe collect some of these together. Like I was saying earlier about the rule of 3s and have sort of different sized baubles, 3 on one side and 3 on the other down here. They just seem a bit too spaced out. Nice work though, absolutely love it. Here's one from Naylan. What craziness have we got going on here this time? The Ink Corporation is stealing all the colour from Christmas. Interesting idea. These are pretty cool models, I've got to say. I like the story as well with these characters up here. Possibly a bit over obsessed with lens flares. But I like how the black and white feeling is sort of creeping in. Great fun idea. I'm not sure what's going on with the roof tiles here, so maybe watch out for those sort of details. Excellent work. This one's from Dead Rocks 2K. This is a great fun piece, isn't it? Nice construction, good angle, and it works with the darker objects closer to the camera, lighter objects in the distance. Excellent stuff. I like the snowman, and the general construction is brilliant. I would have liked to have possibly seen a bit more variation in the trees, maybe vary them as they go up, but that could be seen as a style. Excellent piece, well done. Here's one from Christone. I really like the lights in this, and I think it works really nicely. I might have liked to have seen some stars in the background, make it a bit more Christmassy, and maybe something out the front here like a snowman. But it looks really nice. Here's one from Frank Drebin. But this is a good fun piece, and it's really developed as well from where it started off. My favourite is the Christmas tank, a great addition there. This is a nice little story with the snowman trying to pull the cookie and milk closer to him, and that's come a long way with the window frame and the window just ajar. Helps the story along. Nice idea there. Still possibly needs a tiny bit of work with the lighting, maybe more coming from the fire and this area over here to highlight this, so more candles here and a bigger light, and then we got the light from outside as well. Really nice though, well done. This is one from Lirim. This is a very interesting scene with lots going on. I love the massive, huge sack of presents there. It might have been nice to have some presents sort of spilling out as well. I like this conveyor belt down the middle here. and the Shrink-O-Matic. That's quite clever. Really like that. Brilliant idea. This is nice as well, this elf with the wheelbarrow and the presents all spilling over there. Rudolph in the background. It's all happening. Santa with a massive list. I think it is just the lighting that's letting it down. It still seems very flat. But there's so much detail going on. Even up the top here with all the presents stored. That's so clever. But everything looks the same brightness, and therefore the viewer doesn't quite know where to look. So somehow highlighting areas with lighting would have been great. Almost perfect, that one. Well done. This one's from Adnan Edits. I really like this one. I think it's fantastic. It's quite a weird, unusual idea with this sort of gift shop, this mobile gift shop. But I'm liking the feel of it. This sort of pink colours with the sort of blues work really nicely. Gives it a real texture and a really warm feeling. Great models as well. Well done. This one from Benny. This is a nice construction. I like the silhouette. Looks really good and really clear and vivid. Excellent scene with a nice simplicity. This one from James. It's a very nice piece as well. They put a lot of work into this and asked for lots of feedback, and it's moved on an awful lot. The models are really excellent and the construction's really nice. The only thing I would say is that what is our focus in the scene? Because our eyes are drawn to the Christmas tree in the background because of the bright lights, and then I'm kind of over here, but it's not a lot of detail in that. And then I come down to the cookie cutter, which is quite a nice detail, but I feel like there needs to be something just here, because our main focus is actually the flower, which is probably the most uninteresting in terms of what it really represents, which is flour. So if the gingerbreads maybe were moved into the middle here, or the cookie cutter, then that can be our focus. It's really excellent and comes so far from the start. Really nice work, well done. Here's one from Mary Merry. I think this seemed to get the most likes from the community, so well done for that. It's a very warm, vibrant scene, and I really love the colour combinations. It managed to combine a feeling of snowy, Christmassy landscapes, but still maintain some colour. I think possibly the mountains here are really well done, and then they lose their shape really slightly around here, and this sort of upward angle of the brush strokes. Perhaps they should have kept this sort of sideways movement. Minor point though, really. Excellent stuff. Here's one from Tiriloo. I like this piece. I think there's a lot going for it. Like really nice details in the models. Love the train, and the Christmas tree is really interesting. It might have been nice to have some lights on the Christmas tree, and I feel like the angle needs to be here. There's nothing going on in this area, so there's no point really focusing on it. So bringing the frame to around here and lowering the angle so we can actually see the Christmas train would have been really nice. It's a very high angle and makes this teddy bear look a bit lonely. Nice work though, great work on the models. This one's from Conscious Artist. Really nice style, loved the construction of the snowman, and they said they were a beginner, which I think is a fantastic job for a beginner. I think the only thing letting it down is the scene around the snowman, perhaps putting a bit more details and maybe even lowering the camera angle and focusing more on the snowman would be great, because it's such a lovely model. Well done. This one's from Franck. Really fun scene here. Love the style. It's got that sort of plasticine feel, and I love the idea as well, sort of Viking hut or troll hut or something. Trolls and Vikings together. Again, possibly a little bit flat, so think about where the light's coming from and what aspects of the scene you want to highlight. But really great piece, well done. So well done to all those that entered. It was quite tricky to choose a winner. There were some excellent submissions in both 2D and 3D. I really liked Maffa's, Dasher Solos and Manu Who's. But for me, in the 3D category, it would have to be Raza Bajet with his piece. Absolutely fantastic work here. The lighting is particularly good and the materials, the composition is fantastic. Really well done. You'll get your piece up on the wall of fame. In the 2D category, I think our winner has to be Mary Merry. A really popular one this with the community and a lovely blend of colours and vibrancy. As we speak, the admin are discussing what we're going to do for the next competition. The competitions are going to take a short break over Christmas and join us again in January. And we're still discussing what the theme should be, so look out for the announcements. Thanks again to all those that took part, and I'm looking forward to the next competition and to see all your entries. Thanks for watching. See you next time.